Hello everyone, I've come outside today. I've grabbed a chance when the sun's come out in between some fairly heavy rain showers outside into our fields, because it's that time of year when we're thinking about harvest. Now, harvest is a celebration of all the good food that we can eat, and we often think about farmers at this time of year, the farmers who grow the crops and the meat that we enjoy eating so much. And it's wonderful to be able to appreciate what they have done for us. But for me as a Christian, harvest isn't just about saying thank you to the farmers. It's not even just about saying thank you to the shop workers and the supermarket people who we thought about so much during lockdown. Harvest is so much more than that. For me as a Christian, it's a time of year when I can say thank you to God for His goodness to us in providing us with the sunshine and the rain, with the soil, the ground that helps to grow, the grass that our sheep eat, and the crops that grow from that. All of those things are wonderful things to say thank you to God for at this special time of year, at harvest time. Now, we might think very traditionally about harvest, the crops and the animals that we harvest. There might be other things that we think of as well. But I want us to think a little bit more widely today about harvest. And so I'm going to go back inside to the kitchen. So I want you to come and join me there, and we'll see what we can think about to help us to understand the greatness of God's love for us at harvest time. So when we were outside just now, we were starting to think about harvest and why Christians celebrate it. It's a great time to say thank you to God for the farmers who work so hard to grow our food. And we can enjoy things like picking apples. In fact, these apples came from my neighbour just this morning from her tree. And isn't it lovely that we can share our food? And harvest is a great time to be able to share food with people that don't have so much food. You know, God tells us that we should care for people who don't have the things that we are blessed with. And that's why it's great to be able to give food to the food bank. Did you know one of the most commonly given foods that the food bank receives are baked beans? Now, I wonder how many of you like baked beans. I bet lots of you love baked beans. But where are baked beans harvested from? Do you know? Well, I thought I'd do a little bit of research about this and find out about baked beans, seeing as we eat so many of them and they've become such a feature of our harvest festivals when we give so much of it to the food bank. So obviously, the main ingredient is beans. They're a type of white bean, but for some reason they are called navy beans. That's a bit bizarre, isn't it? And the beans are grown in America, far, far away, and they're shipped across to us here in Britain. So maybe, as well as saying thank you to God for the farmers in America who grow the beans, maybe we should be saying thank you to the sailors, the ship captains who bring them safely across the water. And then you've got the dock workers who help the beans to get off the ship and onto the land, and then the lorry drivers who take them to the factory. Did you know there's a factory near us actually that make lots and lots of tins of baked beans each year? Now, I wonder if you can guess what the next big ingredient is in baked beans. Well, it's something to do with that lovely sauce that comes from it. Do you know? It is tomatoes, that's right. So tomatoes, they come from the Mediterranean very often. We do grow tomatoes in this country. Maybe you've even grown tomatoes at home, or maybe you've got a grandma or grandpa who's got tomatoes growing in their greenhouse. But we use tomatoes to make the tomato sauce that goes round the beans. And of course, tomatoes need sunshine to ripen. And if it wasn't for God providing the sun, then the farmers growing the tomatoes wouldn't have any luck. Now, there are some other ingredients in baked beans. Do you know what this is? It's vinegar. Now, I'll be honest with you, I had to Google how vinegar is made. I probably should have known this by my age, but I didn't. Do you know, vinegar is made in the same way that beer is made. It's grown or rather it's not grown, it's made by fermenting barley. Well, that's what this sort of, you can get it from all sorts of things, but they ferment it, they do some sort of clever scientific thing to it, and they brew it, they add yeast to it, they ferment it, it bubbles, and in the end you get vinegar. So you've got scientists there who are controlling the process of the vinegar. So maybe we should be saying not only thank you to the farmers who grew the barley, but thank you to the scientists and the brewers who are making the vinegar. Now, another thing that is in baked beans is salt. I've got some salt here. I don't know whether you'll be able to see it on the camera. Can you see that salt? There we go. Now, lots of you will know that we live in an area where there's lots and lots of salt coming from under the ground. But actually, that's probably not the sort of salt that we buy from the supermarket to eat. That salt's used for different things. The salt that we eat comes from seawater. So you've got clever engineers who have used machinery to get the seawater onto land so that then the water evaporates off, leaving us with just the salt. So we've got lots of people who have done things. It's also in baked beans got corn flour in it, which you might use to thicken things. That comes from corn, sweet corn. So we've got our farmers again there. We've got, oh, I've got to take this out of the packet. Baked beans have a mixture of different herbs and different sorts of spices. I don't know exactly what ones. I believe it's a closely guarded secret. They smell beautiful though. And that's what adds the beautiful flavour to the tomatoey sauce. But a lot of these herbs and spices are grown overseas. So you have pilots flying aeroplanes bringing the goods over that help to combine to make the baked beans. So there are so many people at harvest time we can be saying thank you to God for, who are working hard all day, every day to make us what we think of as something really simple and easy to have for our tea, and yet so many people to thank for. But if it wasn't for God giving us the sun and the rain and giving us the earth and the sea and the air and everything else that all these things come from, we wouldn't be able to eat them. So I want to share with you a Bible verse. It's a section from a psalm, that's a poem, and it was sung as a song. And it's a way of reminding us of God's goodness, because God doesn't just give us food today and then forget about us tomorrow. He didn't just feed us this year but forgot last year. God's love goes on forever and ever and ever. It might be different farmers or different sailors or different pilots or different engineers or different scientists that are helping us to get our food, but it's the same God, the God who loves us, who helps that to be possible. So I want to read for you a short section from this song. It says this: "Give thanks to the Lord because he is good. His love continues forever. Give thanks to the God of all gods. His love continues forever. Give thanks to the Lord of all lords. His love continues forever. Only he can do great miracles. His love continues forever. With his wisdom he made the skies. His love continues forever. He spread out the earth on the seas. His love continues forever. He made the sun and the moon. His love continues forever. He made the sun to rule the day. His love continues forever. He made the moon and stars to rule the night. His love continues forever. He gives food to every living creature. His love continues forever. Give thanks to the God of heaven. His love continues forever." So, I hope that's inspired you to think a little bit more widely this year about harvest and where our food comes from. And for me as a Christian, ultimately I can say thank you to God for my food. And maybe you might want to think about who you can say thank you to for the food that you enjoy each day. I'm just going to finish with a prayer now. So if you want to just sit very quietly, maybe you want to put your hands together and close your eyes, but if you don't want to, that's fine. Just sit really nice and still and quiet as we say this prayer. And at the end, if you'd like to, you can say Amen. Dear God, thank you for harvest time. Thank you for all the food that you give to us. Thank you for the food that we can share with other people who don't have enough food. Please help us always to be grateful for the food that we have. Thank you that your love continues forever. Amen. Well, it's been great to be with you today, and I look forward to hopefully being with you in person by this time next year when we can maybe celebrate harvest face to face.